Hi. The stream is being launched a little bit early tonight to just have, a bit of a longer runway for essential dialogue about some more recent developments and other subject matters beyond my usual dedicated coverage to junior and collegiate hockey. Effectively, I just wanted to give those sort of headlines, a space where they can just be knocked out quickly so we can just move on to other things. Good Lord. Hold on a minute. Okay. So first off, we will examine the OHL. I think the biggest storyline so far in terms of just being a revelation in such an unexpected manner is the start to the year that the Owen Sound Attack have gotten off to, as they are now 3-0. Having, of course, defeated the London Knights in... Hold on. Wait, is it 1-2... Yeah, my bad. 4-0, actually. That's right. They just played the Barrie Colts earlier today. Of course, they started their season having defeated London in their banner-raising ceremony at Canada Life Place in overtime 3-2, as was discussed last week. They defeated Barrie this past Thursday 2-1 in a shootout, and subsequently defeated the Kitchener Rangers, very consistently strong squad, 5-2 yesterday, and of course defeated Barrie 5-4 in regulation earlier today. Just really a remarkable beginning to this year by a team that usually has a bit of an also-ran status. Of course, as of late, these past few years, they've benefited from the services of Carter George, but of course, right now, he is still within the ranks of the Los Angeles Kings, and they do not have his services. He's still eligible for assignment there, even though, of course, and it's the most... It's really the only place he can be administered and assigned right now, even though he did play for Ontario due to his OHL season having ended in the first round in a sweep. And when he did quite well in those two AHL games as well, but for now he would have to be an OHL assignment, but he is not available currently. And the guys are just answering the bell. This team that they have currently. And it's been pretty impressive. Of course, a lot of the landscape for the CHL right now is a little different as is. For example, we're just now seeing, in the case of the London Knights, Alexei Medvedev and Sam O'Reilly, who I guess is running it back for one more junior season, having been reassigned, from the Vancouver Canucks organization and the Tampa Bay Lightning, respectively. I still can't believe that 1-for-1 trade, it really shows you how much the Tampa Bay Lightning compromised themselves in that whole trade situation, that the most that they could get back for Isaac Howard was, I love Peanut. He's a pretty solid OHL player overall. And, it is hard to... it's rarely a situation where you get a significant return, like for a guy who hasn't, played a single NHL game yet. The Cutter Gauthier situation was very much an anomaly in that respect. But yeah, I don't know what to. I don't know. But in any event, these guys are useful in junior hockey context. So for London to get them back to supplement, a team that's good but is a little weakened, just in comparison to previous years. Both because of those camp assignments but even more so like the number of graduates they've had move on. It's not the same squad strength that we're used to seeing from them. So every hands on deck that they can get to supplement the likes of Logan Howery, who of course I am very much a firm believer in, and of course, let's see, you know, gosh, yeah, some other NHL affiliated players on the roster, of course, still now, even in the form of like William Nickel, Noah Reed, but it's primarily this incarnation's kind of driven by like the Evan Van Gorps and the Rene von Bommels, and oh my God, yeah, hold on, I'm trying to get this to work. Of course, they have Jared Woolley on the back end, Sam Dickinson still, Henry Brustevich, some guys who have been consistent linchpins, but that have that pro level upside. But definitely a different version of the Dale Hunter Knights than we're used to seeing, really, in terms of depth. So every little bit helps, I suppose. I'm wondering what's going on with. I'm going a little bit more tangential here and spending more time on the OHL than I originally anticipated, which probably means it was a good thing that I had the idea that I did. I guess that Owen Sound Attack undefeated run really just like is such a riveting headline to start the year that it kind of just has me a little bit curious about the state of affairs in the league in general, and not in Oshawa general. But yeah, what's going on with Cohen Bidgood, who of course was a youngster that scored their very first goal of the season? Really not something I was expecting when that happened. Of course, he is he's kind of on the young-ish side. This past year was his DY. He's just been on kind of like a slow path dev curve. Very good AAA player at the U15 and U16 level. The sort of kid who could put up at or around 2 PPG, but then spent a couple of years in. He spent like 1 year in the GOJHL, and then was like sort of. He's split last year effectively, almost treating it as an affiliate season between London and St. Mary's in the GOJ, effectively. Yeah, he complimented that goal with an assist, and since then has been quiet, mostly just taking minor penalties, really. Like, that's his primary stat sheet stuff for right now. I was curious to see it. There might still be a breakout for him this year. I don't know necessarily if it gets him drafted as an overager or anything, but yeah, if it happens, the whole team kind of has to just click as a unit first. before then, I would wager. But yeah, he is still on the roster, at least getting consistent minutes and reps. They haven't like reassigned him to St. Mary's again or anything. So at least there's that. Yeah, recent WHL headlines. Let's see. Let's see. So the Penticton V's did eventually. I didn't talk about this last week, but their first victory came against the Vancouver Giants, a team that will be relevant again momentarily, by way of the 5-1 victory. Actually, yeah, I think I do remember looking over that now. It was because it was a bit of an anomalous game. Now that I think about it, but since then, let's see, their sole game was. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah, their sole matchup was against the Kelowna Rockets in a home and home as something of a rivalry is starting to be cultivated there as was anticipated. But they lost both games in close matchups, 5-4 in regulation on Friday. Then yesterday were defeated 3-2 in a shootout. So that's what's going on with them. For an update on another major, coverage source in the form for us in the form of the Victoria Royals, they also played Vancouver this past weekend. They dropped, despite the fact that they had accumulated leads of 3-1 and 4-2 in that game, ultimately lost 5-4 in overtime with Cameron Schmidt, who of course now is a Dallas Stars prospect by way of his round 3 selection at 94th overall in the 2025 NHL entry draft, scoring the overtime winner with Ryan Lynn, probably. I won't say probably, but possibly the second best defensive prospect in this draft class after Keaton Verhoff getting the primary assist. Let's see. Those two were the third and second star, respectively, for 1G, 1A. Of course, with Schmidt's goal serving as the game winner, as documented, and Lynn with 1G, 2A, and a +2. I'm curious about something here. Yeah, I mean, in his first 3 games of the season, Lynn has 2 goals, and it seems like he is, it doesn't seem, because one thing I was thinking about last year was I think that a distinction between him and Verhoff, of course, now tracking those 2 prospects requires different things as, it requires a different form of examination since they're no longer in the same league due to Verhoff's departure for the University of North Dakota, which means that, no one-on-one matchups between these guys anymore. And, just less sample size against the same sort of competition. I did think that, like, his Lynn was like a good playmaker, although I think I did find his assist totals to be a little bit inflated. A lot of empty calorie points, but I also was like a little, despite liking his, his tools. Really, I did think that another thing that held him back was just like it wasn't even just the lack of finishing. It's that his shot diet and selection just didn't impress me. But it seems like he's become more, and he looks to be more intelligent with it this season in these first few games. So that is pretty cool. But in any event, the Royals did enact revenge in the grudge match as they defeated Vancouver by a score of 9-4 last night. In a game I kind of had a hard time fathoming was real, as they also outshot them 31-13. Uh, Rowan Woodward had 4 goals and 1 assist for the first star of the game for London, and quite a pronouncement on this stage for him. As now that outburst was enough to raise him to 3 points per game this year, which is like quite a contrast from his career high 0.78 PPG, which he hit last year with the Edmonton Oil Kings. Obviously things are not going to stay this way, and this is to frame it in that manner is disingenuous. But this is his 20-year-old season, and I think that he's going to be a valuable asset for them this year on a team that lacks a lot of the major presences in terms of like traditional skill guys that they had last year, as they assembled what was an impressively good squad. But now those guys have mostly graduated from junior hockey or have moved on to different dev environments, or on the back end, kind of neither here nor there in this case. But of course, on the last line of defense, reliable goaltender Jaden Krause's services are now being applied to the Brendan Wheat Kings, which is also noteworthy. But these vets are doing all right. Hayden Moore had 3 assists in that game for the second star, and of course, Captain Reggie Newman had 3 assists of his own for the third star of the matchup. So really good showing by the guys that they're really looking to do good things this year in the form of these like 19 and 20-year-old culture leaders on the team that are linchpins from previous eras, or are new guys in their midst who are bringing valuable experience with them. It's also noteworthy that Ludovic Peralt, who is one of their blue chip prospects based off of his output and lower dev levels, alongside of course Eli McCamey, who I believe we're still waiting on his return. These guys are. It's noteworthy that Peralt scored his first goal of the year, so we're getting that's to complement the 2 assists that he already had. To be fair, but we're really getting something from those sort of dudes at this point, which like or at least like that's like the first indicator of those sort of younger talents having an impact on games in such a direct manner. So that's cool. Yeah, let's see. I wish we could get more detailed. Like at least we know firmly that he's out. Whereas like they're getting better in that organization about communicating expectations for like, is this guy even gonna fucking play or not? Considering like Rejny would miss a handful of games in a row last year, and there was never like a single pronouncement about his injury status, or at least we knew McCamey was going to be hurt going into the year. But I wish I could have like some semblance of an idea of his timetable. Well, we'll see what happens with that. That's another guy. They'll only have his services for 1 year because he also was headed to the University of North Dakota, as I believe I've discussed on this pod in the past. The pipeline from Victoria, British Columbia to UND needs to be studied. Yeah, let's take a look at the queue really quickly. I guess the Newfoundland Regiment are effectively the main characters now. It's hard to like top the excitement of them having defeated the not only defeated but swept the Moncton Wildcats in their opening series of the year. But there is a little bit of disappointment as they were subsequently swept this weekend by the Charlottetown Islanders, having lost on Friday in regulation by a score of 3-2, with Justin LaRose and Louis-Francois Bellinger scoring their respective 2 goals, notably outshooting Charlotte 29-23, but just not getting the job done, unfortunately. As Ross Campbell scored the game winner for Charlottetown 13 minutes and 54 seconds into the third period. But last night they were further defeated by Charlottetown 4-1. As Donald Hickey stopped 21 of 22 shots against for Charlottetown in between the pipes. And Emile Perron scored the sole goal for Newfoundland, while, Tyler Peddle. He scored in response to build the lead to 3-1, Ross Campbell slammed the door shut with the 4th goal of the game, with William Shields and Nathan Leake having additionally gotten on the board for Charlottetown in this pretty strong group performance. Yet again, just having outshot Newfoundland, but not having anything to show for it, though they were notably dominated in the second period, quite emphatically having been outshot 13-5. They had the face-off advantage as well, just couldn't really do anything with it. It didn't help also that their power play just looked absolutely neutralized, having gone 0-for-5 in that game as well. But what are you going to do? I figured the USHL deserves a bit of love. They've been back for a little bit of time now, but I haven't really given them much appreciation on this podcast, so it's time to change that. As of right now, there are a few undefeated teams in the league right now, but the most noteworthy are the Youngstown Phantoms and the Muskegon Lumberjacks, who are both 4-0. Having really gotten off to a strong start, with only one of those victories for both teams being shootout wins, therefore making them tied in the ROW category, with Youngstown having the goal differential advantage at a +11 as opposed to Muskegon's +6, but very stable and consistent performances from both. The Dubuque Fighting Saints are equally as dominant. I guess arguably even more so, despite it being a smaller sample size, given that they are 3-0 with a +12 goal differential at 18 goals for and 6 goals against. See, some noteworthy games from this past weekend include Youngstown having defeated the USNTDP by a score of 3-1 on the road in Michigan. Let's see, Muskegon defeated the Green Bay Gamblers 3-0 at home. Let's see. Youngstown additionally defeated the NTDP also USA Hockey Arena in this to sweep the 2-game road series by a score of 5-2. Cedar Rapids defeated Omaha, of course, an organization particularly noteworthy for their consistently chaotic and controversy-filled off-ice situation, by a score of 9-1 at home. I guess that's the major headlines and scores for the USHL for now. I will probably give them a little bit more coverage time in the near future. But now, just for the last bullet point, of course, we are now knocking on the door at the beginning of the NCAA D1 men's season. We'll just look at the Hockey East schedule to keep things somewhat condensed. So there's only actually one intra-conference matchup this weekend, and that will remain the sole matchup. There will be one more game between those teams next weekend as they complete a home and home, rather, there will be two. They'll play again at the same venue, of course, the following day, and then again with the home and away roles reversed next weekend. But those two teams will be the only Hockey East teams to play intra-conference games until October 17th. But that comes in the form of UMass Lowell versus Merrimack, with two at the Zongus this coming weekend, and then the one after that at Lawler Arena in North Andover on Friday the 10th. But yeah, Friday the 3rd and Saturday the 4th, these two teams will face off in Lowell in back-to-back games to kick things off. And really what's effectively the true start to the year, save in like the most high-profile matchup as far as like this part of the country goes, save for a non-conference matchup, of course, on the same night between the Quinnipiac Bobcats and the Boston College Eagles at Kelly Rink, which is a pretty good start to this new era as far as competitive matchups go. UConn is additionally on the road facing Colorado College that same day. A couple of exhibition matchups are going down as New Hampshire takes to Maine to take on the Black Bears that same day. And of course, the NCAA's sole Canadian member in the form of Simon Fraser University will be visiting Providence to take on the Friars in an exhibition matchup as well. For the rest of the slate this weekend, UConn faces Colorado College again on the road the next day. Long Island University visits the Agganis Arena to face the BU Terriers on Saturday night. Northern Michigan will be visiting Amherst to face the Minutemen. Holy Cross will be playing Northeastern to kick off the Matthews Arena's farewell season as the Huskies begin to say farewell to the historic barn that, as of now, is the oldest extant arena in the sport in the U.S. But Merrimack also plays Sacred Heart. I swore there was a. Yeah, never mind. I guess the home and home is just one weekend, just 1 weekend separation. Really poor planning on their part. I really don't know what Hockey East was doing with that schedule semblance. Like, I would have just had the home and home on the same weekend, but I guess it would make more sense than having them play each other 3 times in 2 weeks. But Merrimack is playing Sacred Heart on the road in an exhibition matchup, whereas Brock University on Saturday takes on Vermont in an exhibition on the road in Burlington. And that is the last of the slate for the conference, which doesn't really have many competitive games going on within its own ranks in the coming times, interestingly enough. So these early matchups are pretty essential to just get some sort of groundwork going. Um, but I guess we're just kind of sort of gradually going to feel out how this group kind of goes again, how this group of teams sort of looks against one another, which isn't totally atypical, but it is kind of curious that who they're giving like those first games to, and how they're being spaced out to a point. Uh, but it does mean when we're getting in like November and there's like 3 or 4 conference games going on at the same time, that the stakes are going to feel really high, and that's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, that about covers it for this week's Dev Hockey updates.
I guess keeping the baton in the ecosystem of Dev Hockey, and on the topic of Hockey East, a real quick rundown of the women's kind of this weekend. Unlike men's Hockey East, women's Hockey East is not one of the premier conferences in women's. They don't quite carry the same weight, as the men. So, small wins are a little bit more important in their ecosystem. For Hockey East men's, their non-conference schedule in the early going is super, super important for the short term of how many Hockey East programs can we squeeze into the national tournament on at-large bids. Where the women are really struggling and battling for credibility, as the WCHA and ECAC have dominated the top 10 for such a long time, and as Hockey East, and to a lesser extent the CHA and NUHA battle for relevance. This was a core weekend for, this was simultaneously a great and terrible weekend for Hockey East. As in recent years, Hockey East women tend to place mainly teams in the 60th to 80th percentile. Really, not a great track record of securing a legitimate national title contender. But if this opening weekend is any indicator, I don't think people really understand the significance of Merrimack splitting a regulation series with Clarkson. For people who don't know, the Merrimack women's hockey team is, if you don't follow, even less impressive historically than their male counterparts. I honestly couldn't tell you if they've ever even had a winning season, despite producing one truly elite player, Michaela Grant-Mentis, before the pandemic. So the fact that they were able to split a series with Clarkson, a perennial top 10 ECAC team that produced 2 first-round PWHL selections in just last year's draft, as well as Ann Cherkowski. So 3 of our top 10 professional prospects in last year's PWHL draft came from Clarkson, where Merrimack has produced, I believe, 2 PWHL players in their entire history, is a tremendous victory for them. And seeing Holy Cross, a team who's been similarly snake-bitten in terms of being really competing with middle-of-the-road NUHA teams, not the best of NUHA, middle-of-the-road NUHA teams, to see them finally get a 2-0 start against Rensselaer, which, a lower ECAC team, but the point still stands that one of the lower performing teams in Hockey East being able to beat consistently the lower performing ECAC teams is an important moral and rank pairwise victory for Hockey East. UConn did their due diligence, splitting a series with St. Cloud State. Unfortunate and very strange when you think about UConn and Northeastern historically being really the 2 most prominent teams in Hockey East since the pandemic. UConn splitting with the 5th best team in the WCHA. It is what it is. It is the status quo. So, some really, really impressive stuff there. Maine really hanging in there with Quinnipiac, 2 one-goal losses, including an overtime game. Great for Maine as a program on the road to be able to put those numbers up. If they're able to even lose by less than 4 goals in either of their contests next weekend against Wisconsin, that shows a lot for a middle-of-the-road Hockey East program in women's. But for every tremendous triumph that Hockey East has had this weekend, they had 2 equally ominous and profound setbacks. as UNH historically is a team capable of quite a bit of success, getting absolutely drowned by Mercyhurst at home by the score of 4-0 on Friday night is just not where that program wants to be, not where they want to be, and definitely does not get them off on the right foot being 0-2 against one of the, to be fair, Mercyhurst is perennially a top 3 team in the CHA, but not where UNH wants to be. They're going to have to lick their wounds and recover as quickly as possible to bounce back from that. They have Assumption up next, where if that goes sideways, we can expect UNH to have probably a pretty bad season. But the Hockey East team that is wearing the cone of shame, Boston College, being outscored by a margin of 18-1 over a 7-1 and 11-0 loss to Minnesota this weekend. It's not good. This is a team that had 18 votes in the USCHO poll for a top 15 spot, getting absolutely massacred by, to be fair, yes, Minnesota is one of the 4 best teams in the country. That's not debatable, but the gap between a team that a lot of people had at 16 and a team that most of the country had as a national title contender really doesn't feel good as a Hockey East supporter. And, Boston College has to figure out who they are before they play Holy Cross in a couple of weeks, because that room can't feel good. There can't be a lot of confidence in the room right now. Like,
if you weren't gonna say it, I was gonna.
yeah, there was probably some significant rum consumption in the rum after the loss to Merrimack. When you take the 4th biggest loss in program history and the biggest loss in 22 years, yeah, it.
Keep going.
If that happened to Maine next weekend against Wisconsin, I think it would be a lot more digestible if Maine lost 11-0 to Wisconsin at Wisconsin, solely because of the perceptions of the program. But for BC to open their season getting Sir Dennis Eaton hog paddled by Minnesota to that degree,
Nice.
we needed a Spinal Tap reference. Just not a good look for them. And that's my my high level summary of really where D1 Hockey East Women's is at this point.
What's wrong with being sexy? I hate that that's what comes to mind for me, although flashes back to that one Futurama segment. God, what a classic. To answer your question about Merrimack, or really your pondering more than anything, it was their one winning record was in 2018-19, and they were only 3 games above 500. So yeah. What was I thinking about? Yeah, but with regards to that brief observation about the Hockey schedule, what's funny is I imagine, like, perhaps even more so this year than last, I imagine they're at a point where even just because of strength of schedule and like the program's statures, that the pairwise implications even for intra-conference matchups in Hockey East men's this year are probably, maybe are like even more significant than they were last year, considering, how much how many good recruiting classes there were and how much they also benefited in some programs from the new recruiting environment at large. But like, we're really going to see something from them if we see like really good results against like Big Ten opponents. In UMass Lowell also has a chance to prove themselves pretty early on in the fact that they get to play 2 games with competitive implications against Western Michigan, which like really was like a fucking phenomenal thing for them to have on their slate of non-conference games. Because like even with this not being that team from last season, it's going to be like an esteemed matchup for them regardless, just to be facing a team that did what they did last year and is just looked at differently now because of it. So it's like there's just going to be like, you know, a lot of good litmus tests and probably a lot of really highly ranked pairwise teams in that conference this year. There's definitely like a distinction between the men and women's environment in that respect. Although I do also think that you're right in the assessment you made about the women's HEA, that you know the top isn't going to be able to hang with the absolute big dogs this year, most likely. But there's more competitive parity in that conference, it looks like, based off of the early sampling that we have, where the middle and bottom has risen up a bit in a gangweed-esque manner. Couldn't resist. So it's like it's an interesting landscape, nevertheless. Even though, no, Mark Johnson will probably end this year adding more shit to his case when all is said and done. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I will say I do question, speaking of Mark Johnson, um, him kind of, as a coach, I have a little bit of an issue with some of his decision making, and it's paltry. But fucking shilling to the U.S. national team and playing Layla Edwards on defense in this opening series is just such a bitch move for a coach of like, I get it. That's how the U.S. national team plays her and how they were. You just lost Casey O'Brien, one of the most prolific playmaking forwards in the country, to the PWHL draft. You have the single greatest collegiate women's hockey defenseman we have ever seen in Caroline Harvey. What the fuck are you doing, Mark? Just fucking moving Edwards out of the forward position. Like, great coach, incredible resume. I expected him to not necessarily sell out to the U.S. national team's delusions of making Layla Edwards a defender because she's big.
I like how they're in a position, nevertheless, that they can have a master class in strategic ineptitude behind the bench, but because they're playing Bemidji State and have the roster depth advantage that they have, they can still skate away with a plus 12 goal differential over the course of 2 games.
Yeah. And, like, I'm criticizing, Layla Edwards for only having 2 points in those games, but, like, not for nothing, these are the games where you want Layla Edwards running up her in like inflating her scoring totals, like
yeah, 100%.
like why like a big part of how Haley Wynn got drafted second overall is she a dynamic and incredible skater, sure, but it's not like her and Gosling at Clarkson weren't absolutely taking advantage of every lower tier non-conference matchup to run up their offensive. Not like it's a disservice to Edwards in her pursuit of, school records, individual accomplishments. Like, sure, they might go undefeated this season, but, like, I don't know. I'm nitpicking.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it. I think if you I actually like that a lot because I think you have that sort of acumen. You should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one. So.
Even Billy Idol gets it.
Funny, I was just listening to and like analyzing, like sort of dissecting Eyes Without a Face last night. Great song,
It's
man.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
That's like probably like a top 5 like mainstream rock song from that decade. I would go as far to say, but yeah. So I wonder if Bill Zito feels like he's navigating life, you know. As a face without eyes, as he's confronted with this Sasha Barkov situation.
Yeah, that such a it's such a difficult position to be in. Like on so many levels to unravel. Like one, the new salary cap implications and rules, which to me aren't even like particularly important. And I know that's a thing that people have stressed a lot, but like, when you talk about trying to replace, and this is a bold statement, and I don't think it should be considered a hot take at this point in his career. Trying to replace one of the greatest forwards in NHL history in his prime in the middle of a dynasty is something I don't wish upon anybody.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this in my lifetime, this big of a setback in terms of roster talent and importance hits to an established good team. Like there, a lot of I don't think really like this is like his physical prime per se, or that like he was bound to have like a more like dominant individual season than he's ever had. But sometimes guys do have like their best years in like an abstract sense at age 30. And like, he was going to, you be looking to build upon what was already like an established track record of individual and team success in a year where sometimes guys do have that best season. Like and it's like, he's not, as a 30-year-old, he's not going to play a single fucking game. And what you also ask the question of like, what version of him will we even see on the other side of this? It's like, and I also fucking like, it sucks that like, this was going to be his first time at any international tournament since 2016 as well, not counting this past Four Nations, or and and of course for that matter his first Olympics since skating to a bronze, what will have been 12 years prior. We won't see that it's a hit to the game. It's on that stage, and of course it's not good for the league in general for a guy to miss an entire fucking season for the NHL either. Of course, like like it's just one of those things where like there's this filter down that we as fans like just to appreciate the beautiful game. Like it's good to see that like a lot of people were who aren't even invested in that squad at all felt that way about it. It's like it's fucking like it seems to me that they're in a tough spot where it seems like the answer is just like, fill in the role by committee is probably their best choice as opposed to like forcing something wherein like, um, sure, I wouldn't be surprised if, this current talk of Evgeny Kuznetsov returning to the NHL it ends in him donning that sweater down in Sunrise. But I don't think that there's. I think that this attitude that Paul Maurice has, like regardless of what happens, is that uh, the approach that they have to take is something that one is mostly resolved internally by guys, stepping up and just playing their roles in like a more advanced capacity rather than looking to uh, one person to promote to be promoted and take that up that mantle, because asking that is an impossible task. It's not just because of like how good he is in his specific role. It's the fact that there are so many significant physical demands for it because of the absurd number of assignments that he gets and how difficult those assignments are. Like like even when you just look at the raw TOI, you know that guy is playing a fucking shitload of minutes and having the hardest possible matchups when doing so. So it's like that's something that you cannot force a solitary answer to.
Yeah, this will definitely be, to really echo the sense, like this is going to be the most challenging task of Maurice's career is how he's going to figure out how to do, how to delegate that. I mean, luckily with their roster construction, Bennett and Lundell's defensive upside and ability answers on probably 30% of the equation of those guys being able to take on more. But the other 70%, and we're talking probably 13, 14 minutes of night of offensive expectation where you're expected to be able to, not for nothing, like there are not many human beings in the National Hockey League at the center position who can lock down and win 1v1 against Austin Matthews in an expected goal share category in a 7-game series. So like that's going to be so fascinating to see what Florida, like what Maurice is going to attempt to do to deal with just, to use that specific example, the demons in their own division of guys like, the Kucherov line, the Pasternak line, the Matthews line, like just those three groups of guys alone. Not only, I'm not necessarily worried about the ability for a guy like an Anton Lundell or Sam Bennett to, keep them contained, but to get the offensive output to actually win the battle is a whole other enigma.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And now we also have to see that like the what's the word? The collateral damage, I suppose, by that overall team impact on player offensive productivity, coupled with the fact that for the first few months of the season, there's the Matthew Tkachuk black hole due to his return being slated, not until the calendar year changes over. So it's like I think that this is a strong enough organization and roster to the fact where you don't, despite the fact that you're missing a 1C and the most offensively stable in the volume sense, and also just the premier net front player of this current era, both being gone. I don't think those two things even combined, which is remarkable, are something that you need to throw in the towel over and just call this a bridge year. I think they can have competitive aspirations, even though, of course, it does make the divisional situation more murky. It makes it even more challenging than it already would be. But it's just there are a lot of demands that need to be filled by a committee, and that amongst the top 6 forwards because of those two absences, and there's going to have to be a lot of creativity and a lot of personal push from the collective to make up for the missing pieces.
Yeah, I think one thing that is probably not going to be talked about unless they are very moderately successful in the opening or in the early phases of the year. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where I look down, not necessarily for their on-ice performance, but guys who are going to help them get this done. I think that Bill Zito may have accidentally done probably his best work for this situation through the Brad Marchand acquisition, solely on the ethereal things he brings to the table and his leadership through the fucking adversity in Boston. Where that's a pickup that I think gives them, the intangibles to a guy that the guys in the room can look to and just be like, this is a guy who's seen it all. We're gonna look to this guy, and that's really a thing where because he's a great example of his whole career of being what does the team need me to be? So like I think having him in the room is just such a great asset to like I'd be far less optimistic about their ability to endure this if they didn't have a player with Marchand's experience and leadership without Kachuk and Barkov.
He brings balls to the rum. Like, if there
Uh,
were ever a time to invoke that, I feel like
yes,
it's about Brad Marchand's cultural contributions to this incarnation of the Florida Panthers.
it's true though. Like
It's damn true.
I never thought I'd be singing the praises of Brad Marchand's cultural impact on a team, but yet here we are.
It's damn true.
And you can see, shifting a little bit of gears to the Bruins, where there's definitely a vacuum for leadership in that room from what I've seen so far in the preseason. Of everybody and their mother that has been around me knows how I feel about David Pastrnak as a leader. Fucking world class right winger, one of the best players on the planet. Yeah. Don't trust him as the guy, and I don't really trust McAvoy either. And the fact that Ty Anderson's already giving up hope on the Bruins' promise to be competitive, and we're still in preseason, I think says quite a bit about the room.
The rum. God, hold on just a second.
You're good.
I am using this Pokemon bot on Discord, and I was very dissatisfied with the catch that I got, so I had to like shoot off a one-liner about it. But shitty ass fucking Chikorita. Anyway, yeah, I mean, to be fair, this guy is the guy who's been in the press, it's remarkable because, there are some doomsayers in the 98.5 the Sports Hub ecosystem for sure. But it's mostly like Michael Felger being a guy who just takes the, contrarian position of, I'm not from this market, and I'm just going to remind you at every possible turn that I just, dislike this team just to be a rabble rouser because he has no journalistic qualities whatsoever, and I fucking hate him. But anyway, really, I don't really see many people in the Boston sports press who are willing to, at large, who are willing to meaningfully challenge the status quo of the organization and question its decisions as in the manner that I see Anderson do quite regularly. I think that really says it. It's like this guy is like the most objective voice of the mainstream, people on the beat, and who really just is has a consistent track record of calling things for what they are, and is documented also as not being a fan, as a guy who covers the team. He just this is his job. He doesn't have he doesn't approach it with the disposition, and he knows that this is a catastrophe. In terms of room cohesion and roster talent and expectations. So it's like that. There's just this. They're just starting off on such a bad foot, and I guess I guess this is just another year where they better hope that they have another good long-term investment waiting for them on to be plucked up on draft night. Even though I think that there is a part of me that thinks that I feel like they definitely scouted James Higgins and had belief in him for logical reasons as well. But that pick had to have been at least, I don't know, 70% political as well. By like they did it for the fact that they have like just like an investment in the local talent pool or locally developed and anyways. As well as the fact that it would be well received from like a public relations standpoint. That sort of option isn't as overtly presented to them this year, but I'm not going to just say that they're going to turn the corner and start making wise draft choices just because they did it once, even though it wasn't really like, something that was like solely driven by uh, rational scouting, even though, like, obviously they did pick up a very talented piece there that I commended them for and said that, we know that after Porter Martone, like, immediately thereafter they made it, was drafted by the Flyers. The Bruins made another pick that I thought was exceptional value, and those were the first two really high value picks that were made in this draft. But it's not impossible that if they land themselves in a good spot, that they have, another pick to be satisfied with. Really, like, it should be interesting to see if there's like a full blown catastrophe this year with them getting an even higher lottery spot, maybe with some luck on their side. Because really, if they have like a high lottery pick, I think that there is at least a moderate chance of them adding Keaton Verhoff to their pipeline because he just like he seems like the sort of guy where, for one thing, I think you know it's like as it probably was perceived as a pipe dream for them at a certain point, but like now, like with that being a potential reality, like that's the sort of guy that they would want just for everything that he is and everything that he brings to the table. So that is an interesting possibility to consider anyway, but they need a lot to go wrong and what their actual aspirations are, but to go right for their future for that to be the case. But I mean, they are a terrible depth-wise roster with no cultural direction in a competitive division. So we'll see.
Speaking of, I guess going in the opposite direction, and a little piece of me died yesterday watching the Flyers Bruins preseason game. Zegras and Matvey together is everything. It's going to be everything that I think people thought it could be, and it's going to be so much fun to watch. And I'm so glad it's only my problem 2 games a year. Those two guys are going to have, it. They have the ability to be one of those fucking dynamic duos. I don't even know if I can come up with a truly good comp of what those two remind me of at this point, because I can't really think of a center with Zegras' raw skill and vision and just general insanity of the passes he's willing to attempt. And you and I have spoken extensively about Matvey being, Kucherov Ian, but slightly different in the way he plays the game. Their skill sets are so A, uniquely compatible, and B, just fucking really not a one-to-one comp with any player that's come before them. And the fact that they've already figured out that the other guys is insane, and when I say insane, I'm not using it in a skill descriptor. Just the creativity to try, backwards lob passes and throwing fucking shit high through the crease to just a streaking winger just the creativity and the sheer insanity of the things that those two maniacs are willing to try is just fun.
Yeah. It was it's gonna be fascinating to see, this the chemistry that gets built there, and the utilization seems to be proper, because as our boy Justin Gianpietro pointed out, you know, aside from the fact that it seems like there's already being plenty of reason provided to keep them stapled to one another, Rick Tocchet seems to be willing to give Matvey first line TOI now, which is a big distinction from what the master of the rum, whose a real name I will probably never use again on this podcast, was doing last year. So it's like there's just so much potential for what can happen here that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I had to admit, I did like when that combination did what it did a couple of times. My immediate instinct was just in the server that I'm most active in our channel specifically dedicated to sports talk. I just reflexively dropped that picture of Mickey looking at Mortimer and Minnie enviously, and with the caption "Ducks fans." That's just immediately where my mind went.
The only reason that I didn't crash out harder, and I just, one is, to kind of talk a little, to try it back to the Barkov thing, love of the game, as much as I am in pain, I accepted that Zegras was not going to be a Duck for his whole career after 2022. And as much as getting a fourth line center back for a guy who's about to do some really great stuff, I probably would have been in a much worse state if we hadn't just extended Mason McTavish hours before that game. But yeah, no, as a Ducks fan, I've accepted that it's good for the game. Trevor Zegras was never going to be allowed to be the player that he could have been in the PVGM, Quenneville, Samueli ecosystem. And, I'm not. I guess I'm too much of a fair weather fan, which is a weird thing. I'm not a hardcore of enough of a fan to be upset about what he's going to accomplish in a system that lets him be the player that he should be.
Really speaks a lot to what Greg Cronin was, that Rick Tocchet is seen as to make a political compass reference, a libertarian on the y-axis coach compared to him. But I also like that, I will say that as we discussed behind closed doors, that the McTavish situation was subjected to so much scrutiny about the potential for an offer sheet. No matter what sense he would have made as a candidate for so many teams, it just seems like it was never really on the table in the way that the media discussed it for so long. I was just like, this is just going to be the same sort of I'm a cheap prick standoff that has happened so many times with these guys, RFAs, and just general discourse, that it's going to have the exact same sort of terms. There's going to be a deal, and it's going to look exactly the way on the margins in terms of dollars and cents in term that you expect it to be. It's just going to fucking take forever because they don't want to pay. Oh, I also thought it was funny though that you went the Pat Verbeek general manager rather than general manager Pat Verbeek with that abbreviation as a standard. The title came after, but yeah, I don't know. If it were just fun speculation, I'd get it. But I saw so many serious articles oh, this team might sacrifice this, and this to get Mason McTavish from Anaheim. It's like, shut the fuck up. I was so annoyed throughout that entire thing, even though, of course, Philly was one of those teams that was speculated upon due to the relationship between the clubs that is so well established. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. So I was like, can we just talk about something that actually might have something of an unpredictable ending.
And I think that leads us to a big old finish.
Shout out to Luca Evangelista. Yeah, so speaking of chemistry building, I will be going a dev route this week. We know how much of an ardent supporter I was of the Liam Pugh Maddox Schultz combination becoming what it becoming something that came into reality against my wildest dreams as someone who's a big fan of both of those guys. As far as these plentiful number of 2028 draft eligibles that I have grown invested in the stories of, of course those guys were really at the front and center of it for me, and those their narratives were a big part of the community building we've done in the last year or so. But beyond the fact that I think it was a phenomenal job done by the Regina Pats to just be as aggressive as they were, get the number one pick exactly right, and then go and just fucking blow everyone's minds by trading up for the third overall pick. Just really just going all in on just the most ambitious possible approach. It seems to me like they're also handling the dev matter for both of these players in exactly the way that they should, which really is showing another part of organizational aptitude in a way that they never once showed in the Connor Bedard era, if we're being real. Like, they didn't have to handle his situation with any sort of delicacy, but the fact I'm well documented as being someone who is disdainful of how they handled their overall roster construction in those days and just how much potential they blew. But with Pugh and Schultz, like, their situation is kind of unique in that, these guys are in a situation where they opted, both of them, had their own cases that could have been made for being recipients of WHL/CHL exceptional player status and opted not to apply for it. But now, of course, with them having been previous recipients of EPS at lower levels, it means they're eligible, of course, to play 34 WHL games this year, which is a pretty good number of top level junior reps. And then they can spend the other half of the season playing in AAA. Now they're both, of course, in Regina Pat Canadian control on that level, as Pugh has transferred there on that level from Langley in the JPHL, which means they can play alongside each other there, which is excellent. Develop alongside one another in multiple stages with different demands and all of that. I thought it was a bit of an eyebrow raiser when I saw that they were not deployed on the same line as has traditionally been the case, and it was a little bit of a whoa, okay, what the fuck moment for me. At first, I was like, it was just surprising, but I think that this isn't like a Sedin Twins situation where these guys are inherently having their best qualities drawn out by playing alongside one another at all times, and it's a necessity for them to be at max power. I think it's beneficial for them to feed off of one another, and they are becoming exactly what they should be by playing alongside each other. But I think that these guys are unique players with different demands, different strengths. Despite their complementary status, it can be guys who excel in different contexts. Like the analogy that I used when I talked about this matter privately in our group chat that I'll bring forward to the audience was, you don't teach someone to ride a bike by having them ride a tandem. So it's like, I think that there's value in keeping these guys together, but also having cultivating them to their specific needs as well, and having that, and occasionally be facing challenges, in contexts where they're not playing alongside one another directly. So I'm pretty fond of pretty much every step that's been taken by Regina in handling these two top talents. So it's pretty cool to see what's been you know uh it's been just like a really really good and well handled dev storyline.
On my end this week, really just wanted to double click back into really getting to what I want to do with this part of the podcast a little bit more this season is acknowledging standout performers in the collegiate game to the best of my ability. To really highlight out exceptional players, as you know, in the podcast, I feel like sometimes I get a little reckless and I speak down on players, cough cough, and Tony D'Angelo. So, in the effort of gratitude and acknowledging and building some positive narratives, really wanted to look at two phenomenal goaltending performances this week. Kia Lahtinen, absolute phenomenal play for UMaine this weekend. You know, a 907 save is not considered anything too impressive in the women's game. But when you really come down to what UMaine's squad looked like against Quinnipiac's speed, uh, to reference the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, we gave the same test to a shovel, and it scored a 12. When you're going werewolf hunting, you're lucky to come back as a -7. To put up a 907 save and pull an overtime loss out against Quinnipiac, Kia Lahtinen, one of the best Finnish goalies right now, an 0-3 at that. I wouldn't be surprised if she's repping the national team for Finland really by the end of the decade based off of her performance. And really, shouted her out yesterday a little bit. But upon more research, Lauren Lyons grabbing 43 of 46 against Clarkson in her first collegiate start as an 07 freshman. I don't think it's really understood on a collegiate level how absurd of a stat and absurd of a performance it is to do that. As somebody, and a lot of the bias in the women's hockey ecosystem, especially in the narrative, Ian Kennedy, I'm looking at you, is the obsession with players on the fucking national teams for Canada and the United States, where we tend to overlook players who don't get that treatment, like Izzy Daniel in the past.
Right.
Where she wasn't a U.S. team member until after getting drafted. Sid Bard, similarly, where an 18-year-old from Canada just stonewalled a national title contender straight off the bench, straight out of the Whitby Wolves OWHL U22 system. Like, just absolutely phenomenal outcome from Lauren Lyons, and I love to see that for the women's game. I'm not going to call it Hellebucky too much, but players coming from that the national teams have ignored doing absolute damage control and dominance for 1B programs is something I love to see.
Just wanted to chew my goldfish a little bit before I spoke. What's hilarious is you invoked you invoked that literally just like minutes after I sent the message referencing please pass the egg salad. Really remarkable timing. Man, how's that for a throwback? God. But in any event, yeah. So now we're at a point where we're getting a pretty decent stream of potential content coverage. I have also, there's some stuff like I have more on my radar. Like we know that the KHL has, sort of been relegated in importance just by because of the fact that it's like sort of it kind of reached its natural culmination point in terms of like being firmly in our cycle. But there are some things I've like tracked there, for instance, and there's plenty of stuff that we're already discussing. But it's really cool now. We're at the point where we should be able to provide even better and more immersive entertainment for the viewers and readers as more and more leagues start to come back and have more development. So like we think that there should be some pretty cool stuff coming up, and that we can cover for you. Even just starting this weekend, as NCAA men's kicks off at the D1 level, and as the NHL season approaches. On the note of the KHL, I gotta give a shout out to my boy Zabragin, who's just been doing fucking ridiculous shit, just in the context of like, continuing his ridiculous statistical compilation, and also like, just ridiculous individual feats of, him just like, I don't know, clip farming and goal. Basically, it's been absurd. But all that sort of stuff will be discussed and written about more in the near future. And we appreciate that we have an audience here for this. And we thank everybody who's consistently engaged with this, and we will hopefully reward your loyalty even further in the near future. So with that said, thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everyone who's checking us out on Spotify and YouTube. We should see you again next weekend. So take care, everybody. Have a great night.